Good morning. Thank you for joining us. You're watching KUHS, the stream on Melody Drive. This is The Boost, and I am your host, Paul Lane. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Those of you who follow us every week, those of you who are thinking about writing, those of you who are leaders in your community, our motto is everybody's looking for a hero, and if you can't find one, be one. And one of the coolest things about my job is that's what I do. I look for heroes, and Jose Aguayo last week was our hero. He talked about veterans. This week we're going to be talking to Rudy Garcia. Rudy, pronounce the last word of this. The death song of the dragon.
Actually, it says death song of the dragon.
Dragon. Oh yeah, I see the accent mark.
Chicxulub.
Chicxulub. So, man, I got to tell you, this book is an awesome book. I never, ever heard of Chicano fantasy. And, this book is a book that just not only gives you feelings of pride and self and your indigenous roots, but it wants you to find out more about your heritage and find out more about who you really are. Because, believe me, the whole history of who we are is not always told to us. And this book is a great, it's just a great metaphor, and it's just a great... it's really a very entertaining story that just, like I say, it just opens your eyes to culture. What would you say about that definition?
Opens your eyes to culture. I meant it to explain some of the aspects of Chicano, Mexicano, Indio, Mexica culture.
Yes.
And however well it does that, that was my intent. So,
this book is about a kid who's going through an identity crisis. This is a kid that's he's Irish, and he's his name's Miguel, and so he's kind of torn between two different worlds in his whole life, and he's trying to find his roots, and he's trying to find out who he is, and trying to find out about his Hispano culture, his Latino Chicano culture, and he's really not aware at all. He's really just an open student.
Yeah, he's what he has studied on his own, because he's on his way to college, is archaeology, anthropology, and he's learned a lot of things, but they're all book knowledge.
Yes. Everything he's learned is from school and from what's been taught to him by the dominant culture, and so his reference on himself is very limited. And he goes to New Mexico and he finds a shaman named Tomas, and the story takes off from there. Tomas is he's a great character. I chuckle when I think about him. I just can see him in my eye when I close my eyes. This guy is a wordsmith, guys. When you read his words and you see how he paints pictures and he talks about fantastic things that you just imagine in your mind's eye. It's just really, really exciting to read your book.
Thank you.
In your book, you were saying in the introduction that your daughter really thought that this was your best work, and so you have a couple of different books, but you have different books written in anthologies too. Is that right?
Right. Just to give you a flash of it, this is my latest one. This anthology, Chicano anthology of sci-fi, just came out, and I have a story in that. This was one of my first short stories, the anthology Latinos in Lotus Land, that I got a story in. I think this one was 2 years ago, and it's still in print. This is my first novel that
was it?
I'm sorry.
The Lost Trails of the Lost Trails, Forgotten Trails of the Weird West. Great title.
You can go to my website, and all these things are listed and where you can get them or find them online. This was my first novel that was honored by the International Latino Book Awards in sci-fi fantasy. And then I have had stories published in anthologies in Romania. I have one story that appeared in a cricket publication in Spanish. That was a fable, a children's fable in Spanish. This is what it looks like. I was really proud of this one. And I've had some other, I've won some contests. This latest work that just came out last year just received honorable mention by the International Latino Book Awards in Best Novel Science Fiction.
And that's I think it's warranted. Just the descriptions of the things that you talk about in here were so well done. How did you get started writing?
How did I get started writing? I think the main thing that happened was I had the same English teacher in middle school and in high school in San Antonio, and she and I started exchanging letters. I went off to college at UT in Austin, and we kept exchanging letters. And then I moved to Denver, and after a while, we sort of lost touch. And she got a hold of me, and she said she was going to Denver, and we went and had breakfast, and she showed me a book, mimeographed, typed, hand-bound, and it was called The Letters Between Us. And it was her letters and my letters, dun 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 dun, all the way through the years. And it blew my mind. I think maybe that's where I got an inspiration or a fire burned under me to continue writing. One of the first things I did was in the early 70s in Denver. I lucked onto a Sunday editorial column about Chicanos, and I wrote that for a year and a half. There are other things that came into the picture, but that's about the start of it.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you first started writing, did you know it was going to end up being a book, or did you just start writing and it turned into a book, or how did that happen?
This one, it had to be a book, and the reason is I used to drive down to San Antonio from Denver,
I'm gonna hold this up,
which is like a 13-hour drive, 16-hour drive, and I was doing it one time by myself, and it was late at night, like 3 in the morning or something. And I was tired, and I'd probably been drinking, and whoosh, on the side of the road, I saw a dragon. And I keep driving, I'm going, well, it couldn't have been a dragon, right? And there aren't any more dinosaurs. If I thought about it, I might have gone back, turned around and gone back, just to double check. But that scene is in this book. It's the first time that Miguel, the hero, quote, meets his nemesis, the Dragon Chicxulub. I took off from that idea, and I knew way down the line that it was too big of a story to not be a book. It wasn't, it would not fit in a short story.
His mentor, Tomas, is a very just admirable character. He's somebody that, I mean, you listen to his wisdom and his wit and his sarcasm, and he has so many dimensions. And he's just, I mean, this this old viejito in New Mexico that you would think, oh, you know, he probably barely speaks English. And as I read it out loud, I read out loud to Dee, my lady, and I read it and I change the accents, you know. And as I read his accent, I kept becoming more and more related to him, and I just love this guy. Did you have him? Was he from someone you had known in your life, or did you conjure him?
He's from you and everyone out there. All of us have. In our family, we have crazy Uncle Johnny. We have Abuelo Tomas. We have our dads. We have our older brothers. Likewise, there are females, but in this case, the character is male. And I think all I did was I plagiarized from all of your relatives. Some of the most distinctive features about him. Tomas is loud. He's fucking loud all the time. He's intelligent as hell, more intelligent than you
Professors.
think. He's even more intelligent than college professors. He's also, he's a little bit of a womanizer. There aren't any scenes about that, but you get the idea that este vato has done some stuff that maybe he shouldn't have.
Talk about his library.
Oh, his library. Well, his library a little bit is my dream library. Tomas has all of these books that you would not believe a Chicano, a rural Chicano old man would have on his shelves. There are things in French, there are things in German, there are manuscripts, there are
Classics.
lost, there are classics of English and Spanish and all manner of things. It amazes Miguel that the library itself, he cannot believe that somebody would have read all those things and know all those things. But Tomas repeatedly is dropping facts, names, history, and that character, like I said, is not my character. It's a piece of all of your strange male family members. They may be dying out, but there's still a lot of them, and there will be more of them.
You know, I think what you said just resonates with me, because I remember back when I was a young man, and there were the ancient ones. You know, there were the moms and dads, the tios, the tias, and then the abuelos and abuelas. And they were the ancient ones. And as I go through life and I look at all my peers and I look around me, I now see that I am soon to be entering into that category. And when I see it and hear Tomas, and I mean, your book is so descriptive, I can literally see Tomas. I see, and I want to be Tomas. So,
Well, Tomas is actually, he's actually helpless against the dragon. For all that he is, he's basically a sentinel. He has to train those that are going to take on the dragon. He cannot just up and go and take, and he's lost apprentices. This is the first time that, like he says, the gods send me another Anglo, because at the beginning, that's all we know about Miguel. Later, we learn some other things.
guys, if you're just joining us, you are watching The Boost on KUHS, the stream on Melody Drive. I am your host, Paul Lane, and we are talking to Rudy C.H. Garcia, who has written this awesome fantasy book. How would you describe this book?
Mostly fantasy, some sci-fi.
Sci-fi fantasy. If you at all have any interest in some really colorful character writing, I mean, this book is not just entertaining, but it's uplifting and it's enlightening. I mean, really enlightening. There's so many things that in the book there was some reviews, and one of the reviews compared him to Carlos Castaneda. And if you don't know who Carlos Castaneda is, he wrote a series of books. One of his main book was A Yaqui Way of Learning, and The Teachings of Don Juan, and it was all, the subtitle of that book. But it was very, very reminiscent of that, in that it's just, you want to go there. You want to be in that place. You want to. I felt like I wanted to sit there with Miguel and say, hey, what did you think of Tomas? Tomas likes his mezcal. He loves his mezcal, and he orders, Miguel, every time you come here, you got to bring some new bottle of mezcal. I thought that was pretty funny. Just his character was just the viejito, like you said. It's my tío, it's my Uncle Bobby, it's my Grandpa Feliberto. It's all of those things, and it really is.
An important part of the book is the women. We have a series of women, young and old, and very old, who play pivotal roles. Blasa, who only appears, I think, 4 times total in the book, and only speaks like 1 time, but she's the curandera bruja who has certain powers that are crucial to dealing with the dragon. Maritza is a med student in Mexico City who becomes Miguel's partner, and then basically takes over leadership of the hunt. So half of this book takes place in northern New Mexico, rural areas, and the other half takes place in Mexico. And she is, again, crucial to, she has done research, she knows all kinds of things that Miguel has never heard of about the dragon. She has a plan, she can obtain weapons, she has political contacts, so she's crucial to the story and the mission. There were also secondary characters. One woman in New Mexico who teaches Miguel about love, his first love. A series of old women in Mexico City who are curanderas, who I would love to sit down with them and have a bottle of mezcal. These tres viejitas, they play an important role too. So don't think this is another boy meets mentor teacher and he goes off and kills the dragon. No, this boy could not do it without quite a bit of help and leadership.
Yes. And
training from the women in the story.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And that's really such an important dynamic of it, because it's not just a male dominant or male only story. It's very, very it's inclusive, and that's a nice thing about it. Maritza stays with him till the very end, and she stands by his side there, and pretty interesting.
She saves his ass at the end.
Saves his ass at the end. Yeah, I tell you, it caught me by surprise. There was a lot of surprises in the book. There's a lot of unexpected turns. I like that about it. It really kept you on your seat, on the edge of your seat. And I thought, wow, this is really well thought out. When you wake up in the morning and you would write, did you know what was going to come out at the end of the day, or did you let the pen let your fingers do the talking?
It depends on the day. I wrote the first version of this in 6 weeks. It was only half this long. It took me years after that to turn it into this almost 400-pager. No, I have an idea. Basically, ideas come from my brain just running ahead and saying, this is where it's going. And actually, you pointed out one of the most important techniques I use, and that is I don't want the reader to turn the page and say, oh, I know what's going to happen next. Oh, I know where he's going next. I know what they're going to say. I deliberately make it a point to not let that happen as much as possible, and to surprise.
Yeah.
And to astound, and to maybe sicken, and to maybe maybe hits you a little bit somewhere in your heart, because I'm like everybody else. I hate a boring story. I hate the same old story, whether it's on a TV screen or in a book.
Mm-hmm. And I keep talking about how colorful your use of wording is, and I told my wife, man, this guy is a wordsmith. This is, when you read a book and you want to see expressions on people's faces, and when you want to see their anger, or when you want to see their physical movements, or you want to hear the sound of water hitting the ground, I mean, all of these things are accentuated just by putting the right words in the right order, and I mean, that's exactly what it says. Just every page, I'm just trying to think of, just look at a place where, for several minutes, they ate and drank and smiled at each other. Angelina took a break from food and leaned back on the couch. I see the clothes fit well enough. Yeah, thanks for your father, too. I'll see you get them back. Don't worry, there are extra in case he drops in and needs something. I'm trying to find a place that really shows the color. I should have marked them down, but as I go through the book, I mean, there's just so many spots that are just like, whoa, man. I mean, this is almost poetic. Just in the colorful expressions. She dropped to her knees and twirled back onto her rump on one eyebrow, lying down as if overcoming aching muscles. With her other hand, she smoothed blanket space by her side, trying not to act an over-eager young teen provided impossible. Given the record time Miguel set in discarding his clothes, he was he was about to join her, still in his briefs, when he raised his eyebrows, reminded him of the previous night by the pool. He tore off his shorts, bundled them, and tossed them in to hang with hers. But I mean, he just, what transpired that afternoon would be etched into Miguel's mind and heart until the day he no longer breathed. It would become a dream he replayed 1,000-fold until his brain cells lost their functions. It would make him realize that perhaps Tomas had somehow taught him to heighten his sexual prowess, and it would have awakened Lucha and Antonia Maria, along with San Esperanza and other permanent residents, if such a thing had been possible. Angelina would remember it fondly every waking day of her life. So when you put words down and you look at them and you examine them, I think you just had a brilliant way of expression, and I just love that about this whole book. From the first page to the last, it was just so, I mean, from the time they were even questioning Maritza in the end, I mean, it was like, you could feel yourself sitting in the chair next to her. And that's something that a lot of authors have a difficult time grasping,
I try to do what I can. Can I share with you one section here?
Please.
This is you mentioned it. This is Tomas at a party. And there's a crowd, and Miguel is watching him. Tomas loomed above most of the audience like the pyramid of the sun towered over the plains of Teotihuacan. Mm. We Mexicanos love revolution. That is, revolution with a capital R, since it is more ingrained in our cultural psyche than corresponding events on this side of the Rio Bravo. The Mexican people's experience mirrors that of their North American counterparts, only in that our revolution was betrayed, with few exceptions, by those of the non-working classes. But where both have schools and holidays to commemorate heroes and victories of their respective insurrections, the Mexican's body and soul were so steeped in his history, the mere whisper of Padre Hidalgo or Los Niños Héroes evokes tears and an emotional fervor unmatched. Suddenly, cries of Viva la Revolución from the rear indicated that Tomas had some supporters. Someone need only mention the word revolution there, he pointed south, and the common man excitedly recounts how his grandfather fought alongside Pancho Villa's revolucionarios, as if the Battle of Torreon took place last week. Or if another soul cries out, Viva la Revolucion, the just as common woman will explain as animatedly how her grandmother supplied los servicios delicados to Zapata's peasant army. Tomas gave the three Spanish words a befitting, sexy overtone. People who understood the reference blushed.
You know, I as you're reading that, I think about my father-in-law, who, you know, from my first marriage, my deceased wife, and he was very intellectual, and he was so smart, and I just loved talking to him because he just had so much wisdom and so much, you know, that viejito wisdom, and it's like I could see so many, and it's so interesting that you said that. That's all of our abuelitos, it's all of our tios, it's all of our primos, it's all of los viejitos, all of them wrapped up in this viejito, this shaman, and who seems to be immortal. I love that you know, even the people in the whole town would say, "Oh yeah, he's been here for you know, for generation after generation." Talks about him and how he taught them all, and you know, and so many scholars had come, and so many historians and archaeologists, and he never told anyone the whole story, and that was so fascinating because of all the people he chose a gringo. He called him the gringo, and he chose this boy, Miguel, to share these treasures with that he would never share with anyone. And I guess in my life I've had points of time. I was in Germany one time with the army, and we were on a war games mission, and we pulled up in this little town, and this little old man came out, and he saw all these guys, and he came right to me. And he came to me, and he got 2 shot glasses, and he had a bottle under his arm, and he got that, and the bottle said, "Mein Freund." And he said, "My friend," and he looked at me, and I didn't speak German. I was there, you know, on a short trip, and he poured a shot for himself and one for me, and we drank it. And when I read about Miguel and how he was chosen by Tomas to give this wisdom to, I felt a connection, you know, and I love that about it because it's up to us to be the hero. When we can't find a hero, you gotta be the hero. And those of you who are sitting there, and I know week after week you listen and you're still sitting at your laptop and haven't written a page. The first page is where it starts, guys. And you know, even if nobody ever reads your book, you read your book. Be your own hero. But Tomas was a hero to me. I just loved his character. I loved his person. Like I said, I wanted to be Tomas. A few weeks ago, we had Ricardo Laforet there, and when I hear him, I think of Ricardo, just his wisdom and his wit, and you know, his knowledge was just great to be around, and you know, his linguistics are just so powerful. You know, he just uses the word to express himself in a way that you absolutely understand what he's saying. And yet there was still an unspoken undertone of, what do you mean by that? I don't know, does that make sense to you? Is that kind of what you were trying to convey? Or for me, that's what I felt. A lot of times it's like, oh, I love what he said. It's so thorough, and yet it left you wanting more, I guess.
Well, there's two elements in the book that speak to that, I guess. One is that Tomas repeats a philosophy of the 9 passions, and throughout the book he will explain parts of it. He will introduce elements of it, but never at any point do you get a plan in front of you that says, here's how you can practice the 9 passions. It's fictional, although I tried to keep it in line with native and even, for that matter, nonviolent philosophies. The second point is violence. Um, this book is not exactly like even a Harry Potter book when it comes to violence. There are a few major points in the book where a battle is going to take place. And in one of them, Maritza has obtained the weapon they need. They use the weapon. It turns out it either didn't work, it missed, or it didn't succeed. All of the other times when battles take place are other ways are found of dealing with the situation. I don't want to give you too much of the plot of the story, but this is not swords and karate and whatever kind of book. It does point out by example how problems can be resolved in other ways, particularly using your brain and your heart.
Very well said. When Miguel is finally in the battle with the dragon, what feeling were did you want to convey when he's when he's standing there and he has the Molotov cocktail and when I don't want to talk too much about this because I want you to read this book for yourself, guys, but I guess I just kept wondering, what was he thinking? What was he thinking? There's many times throughout the book that you get that, you just want to really put yourself in there with them. I really did. I felt like a part of a connection to the characters in the book. I was going to ask a question about connecting with characters, but just slipped my mind. Do any of your characters come from real people that you know?
Besides Tomas. Not really, okay? Scenes, a lot come from my experience. There's a scene in here from in Veracruz, a bar on the wharf there, and there's a group of handicapped people that they happen upon. Miguel happens upon, and this whole exchange goes on, and it's not the exchange that you would expect. I try to do that in real life. I do try to go over to the table where there's a guy in a wheelchair and talk to him. I'm in Mexico. What am I there for? To look at the beach and look at the museum statues? A big part of anything for me is to talk to the people there, to find out about them, to find out what goes on there. After a while, my wife and I were invited over to this table with all these people, and drinks were exchanged for like from 2 o'clock in the afternoon till midnight. And you can imagine what kind of shape that left everybody in. But there are other scenes. There's a scene in here at a fiesta in New Mexico. In fact, I stopped at Neftali de Leon's house in the early 70s, the poet. I stopped at his house in Lubbock, I think. Yeah, Lubbock. And I found out many things about the city, and there was corridos made up about the tornado that had come through and taken out the barrio, and all kinds of people had new homes because they'd gotten federal assistance, emergency. And he sat me down one day in a ring of guitar players, todos mexicanos hablando puro español, and it turned out that they were making up lyrics to the music. And I was sitting in the circle, and I realized holy shit, they're going to come around to me and they're going to expect me to, you know, and my Spanish is like, you know, it's not great. And I decided I better just stay and better try to make something up. And I was so nervous I could not believe it. I was like 18 years old, or no, I was already in my 20s, 21, 22. But all these guys around me were like, you know, 40s, 50s, 80s, who knows. And I did the best I could, and I came out with some lyrics, and they clapped for me, and they knew my Spanish was horrid, and it was not the most clever lyrics they'd ever heard. I put that in the book. And again, there are scenes from my life, my experiences, the old ladies on the porch in Mexico City, the museum in downtown Mexico City, that are in the book. For me, obviously the people are important, but a lot I use the scenes as a vehicle to introduce my characters.
Who were, you know, as you were growing up, and I could see that you're a reader. I see that you read a lot of books. Your linguistics are so wonderful. Who were your authors? Who were your heroes, or who were your inspirations when you were up and coming?
Back in the, let's see, that would have been the 60s, 50s, 60s, I went to the library. I had to take the bus to go downtown because there wasn't one in our neighborhood. And went to the main library, and I would take all the books that I could get. And I'd be back the next week. I'd go down aisles, and I'd just pick a book out, and I'd look at it and say, okay, let's try this one. I'd go to history, I'd go to fiction, whatever. Now, in those days, there were hardly any books that you could find that were about us to begin with. I got fascinated with science fiction. So I read all the classic science fiction authors, all the books. And at some point, I started history, every kind of history. English history, European history, Mexico, South America, the United States for that matter. And so there's a lot of history in all of my stories, or references, or settings, or whatever. But I would not say there's an author, or even a few authors that I mean, there's some books that I've read and reread. 100 Years of Solitude, of course. The Mayor of Casterbridge, Thomas Hardy book. I don't want to waste your time here. None of the books are that singular. But the big thing was I read. I read everything. I read for so long that I started picking up books, going through novels, and I said, how did this book get published? This is awful. This part here sucks. I could write that better than that. And I incorporated that, and I started writing.
You said something very interesting, and that was, in that day there was nobody who looked like us who wrote books.
They did, but
or it wasn't
not many.
It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't a book that you'd pick up and that was engrossing. It was, you know, it might have been a historical novel. It might have been something that, you know, was factual. But to have a book that you pick up and read for joy, written by a Chicano Latino, I think it opens up a whole new world. I think it's just time. It's time for this kind of a book to be written. It's time for people in the brown community to pick up their pen and to start getting their laptop and start writing these kind of books. Fiction, non-fiction, fiction. Everybody has a book in them. And you know, it's just such a collection of, like you say, Tomas would come out and he would give all these historical facts, and I said, man, as I was reading it, I'm thinking to myself, man, you know, I really did some research on this, because, you know, he's spitting out dates, and he's spitting out names and historical experience, happenings and events, and it just gave that much more dimension to this character, Tomas. And I guess for me, he was the one character in the book that always was the guy I like to hear. I don't know, maybe it was just me, but he just always had that personality that just really resonated with me.
I want to mention, I'm sure you're going to mention it, but look for rchgarcia.com.
Oh, yes.
There you'll find the information about where to order my book. In Denver, you can get it at Tattered Cover and Book Bar Denver and some other bookstores here. You can get it in some other independent bookstores in other states. But there is not an electronic version yet. I'm hoping this year maybe they'll begin thinking about that.
Did you self-publish, or did someone publish your book?
No, I don't self-publish. I don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to. I don't need to learn something else to be bad at. This was. I entered a contest 4 years ago, held by Somos en Escrito Literary Foundation, and it was a sci-fi contest, and I won first prize, $100. Hey, and it was published on their website, and it's still there. And they asked me, they said, hey, do you got any novels, books that we could look at about publishing? I got like 5 of them, right, that haven't been published. This one, though, the introduction, or like it says in the forward, my daughter always thought this was my best story. Mm-hmm. She hasn't seen all of mine, though. And you can order it from the publisher. My other book, likewise, was published by a small California press. If you're young, I think you ought to consider self-publishing. Know that you're going to blow a whole lot of money. Do it as a hobby. Don't expect to get rich from it. Do it because you love it, because it's something about your heart, or you love writing. You have a story that you love the hell out of. But I set myself a goal. I said I was never going to self-publish. All of my stories were picked up by somebody. A lot of times I was paid. Not always, but sometimes that's okay. I also won honorable mention in a Writer's Digest writing contest 1 year. I won a first prize in a British contest for sci-fi. Not a big one, a small one, but I did win first prize. I got books published or stories published in Romania, as I said. And I'm like, well, how'd that happen? The one that totally blew my mind, though, I really think, was this one. That appeared, and this is Cricket, that does a lot of children's magazines, and that they accepted it, and it was in Spanish. Mm-hmm. I didn't know I could do that. I had a lot of editorial help on that one. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go on too long.
No, please, that's what you're here for. I appreciate that. I have a lot of guests that are thinking about maybe one day writing a book, and then their life they're looking for some inspiration or inspirational words or any wisdom. What kind of advice would you have for someone who's never written a book, who's always had this fear but wants to do it? What would you tell them?
Well, you got to start writing it. It doesn't make any difference if it's just notes. Notes are fine. I have, I don't know how many thousands of pages of notes for any book that I write. So you don't have to say, okay, now I'm going to start writing page 1. No, just start making notes. They don't have to be in order. They don't have to be in chronological order. They don't have to be in the order they're going to appear in the book. you just think maybe you're going to use this information, this sentence, this description in the book. I try to make it a habit of carrying a little notebook with me wherever I go. Now we have phones that we carry with us everywhere that keep us from having a little notebook. In fact, I use that little notebook, and if I'm sitting there waiting in line and I see that character over there in the corner sitting up like that with a red shirt, that is really strange. And what makes me think he's strange, and so I start writing it down. Poof, I got 3 sentences. I'm sitting by the water waiting for people to show up to sit down and eat at the picnic table. Got my little book. Right now the water sounds like this to me. It sounds like maybe there's something underneath there. Or where did it come from? Or why is it that color? Or whatever. Just write your notes, and if you've got an idea for your whole book, just go ahead and do that. I'm talking about somebody that's really hesitant, not sure where to start, whatever. Do that at least.
There's a bestseller sitting in this audience. They're just waiting for that moment to pick up that pen.
Better say it, Chingos.
Get Chingos.
Yeah.
That's right. You know, I've been so fortunate to have had so many different varieties of authors in here, and I have the first Latino Chicano that's written a book, a fantasy book, and it's just so, or a sci-fi book, and it's so refreshing because you know, it's out of the box. It's not something you expect from our culture. It's, you know, and I don't know why I can't explain that. Maybe it's a stereotype, a self-imposed stereotype, but it's very unusual, and it's, like I say, it's very refreshing.
There's an historical reason why. In Mexico, in Latin America, in Spanish, there has been science fiction written for a long time. Even in Puerto Rico, for that matter. In the United States, after they stole the Southwest from Mexico, they began to tear at our language, at Spanish particularly. And they denied us education in many ways. I used to take IQ tests in high school, you know, and I would take one, and they would say, "Oh, here's your score." I'd say, "Oh, okay, that's pretty good." And they'd say, "Yeah, that's pretty good." I recently had one done, well, recently, like in the last 10 years, I did another one. And a lot of things were removed from my head. A lot of veils and shadows were gone. I wasn't a little Chicano back in San Antonio. And it was 12 points higher. Now, that was denied me having those extra 12 points back when I was in high school. Okay? The system took away not just the land and tried to take away culture,
Heritage,
all the
history,
heritage,
our ancestry,
everything. Yes. They shoveled us over to be cooks and laborers and
roofers, concrete contractors,
whatever, but not engineers and mathematicians and scientists. Okay, and that's where the U.S. science fiction writers came from. A lot of them. They came out of the space program, you know, after Sputnik and all that, and they had all the technical information to do. It was their job to work on spaceships, right? So they were writing stories about spaceships. Hey, how many spaceship stories are you going to get out of the body of where they're telling us to go to learn how to build a house, how to use a hammer, be a gardener. So when we finally started writing, or when our writings in the United States finally started coming out, they were a lot tied not to science and math and engineering. They were tied to culture. Okay, even some books that are coming out this year are like that, written by Chicanos, Boricuas, Dominicanos, whatever. They are filled with folklore, what's called folklore, or fantasy, etc. And that's the reason. Hey, you give me a whole bunch of Chicanos and I'll throw them into tech school. They'll be writing stories about tech.
Yep.
But you throw them out, you don't give us that opportunity. Historically, it was not there.
Yep. You know, I remember when I was a young man and I heard two older white Anglo men talking, and they said, "You want to hide something from a Mexican? Put it in a book." I got to tell you, man, I was a young man, and that pissed me off, and that really started me on a journey of being a reader. Because you can't hide nothing from me. I'll search it out. And I want to break that barrier. I don't want that to be my restriction. You're not going to hide it from me in a book. I'm going to find it in that book, and I'm going to read the book. Guys, you have a gift in you. It's your mind. You have a powerful, powerful gift in you. It's called your spirit. And when you put your mind together with your spirit, beautiful things are going to come out of you. And not only that, it's going to be something, a legacy that will long last after you are perished from this earth, as we all will. But man, guys, I know that you're waiting. I know that you're wanting to do it. Pick up your tablet and start writing. Pick up your phone, like you says, write some notes. Again, this book is going to be available at the Tattered Cover Bookstore. rchgarcia.com is his website. Pick up this book today. Get it. I promise you, you will not be sorry. It's a great book. Like I say, easy to read, entertaining, humorous, has insights. It has old viejito wisdom. It has has romance in it. It has just a little bit of everything, and it's just a worthwhile read, guys. I come out here and I feature guests, and I tell you every week, this is a book you got to have. But I mean it, guys. Really, really get this book. It's so entertaining. It's just it's a fun book to read, and that's what you need, is something to release you. It's a good time right now. COVID's going on pretty bad, and pick up this book, go sit out by a fireplace or out on your front porch and just wrap up in a blanket and read it. What other works are you really proud of that you'd like to talk about today? Is there any of your works that you've got so many? Were there any short stories that were really, really noteworthy to you, or that really you were really proud of? Besides this, this article.
Oh, I don't know, dude. Actually, this one, I love this one. This was edited by Daniel Olivas from California, and when he accepted my story, I was just, it was like my first big one. I was like astounded. The story itself is partially came out of my writing for the Denver Post decades ago, back in the 70s. And it concerns a detective, a Chicano detective, who finds a missing activist, and who agrees to meet with him in this motel. And I got the story from being at that motel. If you've ever stayed in a seedy motel in Los Angeles near the airport, you know how hard it can be. Maybe more hard than a whole lot of other things. I wasn't sure I would live till the morning. But I took that, again, a scene, as the tool to tell this story that's sort of like magical realism, I suppose. It's not a fantasy story. But the fact that it was accepted for this, and this book will always be in print because it's a University of Arizona Press. And I wanted to go back just a little bit about what you were telling people to start writing. All these things that I wrote, they're the result of 50 years of writing. Okay, I would go 10 years with no story being published, even though I had 20 stories, even though I was sending them out every week sometimes. I would get one back, I would send it out again, I'd get one back. You're going to get, everybody gets, Stephen King used to get rejections. You will not win prizes every time. You won't make the cut on some anthology. All that is part of not the fact that we're so much that we're Chicanos in a non-Chicano country. It's that's how writing is. That's how writing is in Mexico. That's how writing is in any country, in any language. You get rejections. If you want a place to get some rejection that you can live with, go over there. Because here, you have to get tough. You have to say, hey, I got time. You know, I got time to learn, I got time to write. It could take years, it could take decades.
Mm-hmm. And you got to be thick-skinned. I remember when I first started writing my first book, and I took it to a woman who was a friend of mine and had her PhD, and she took my book apart and she shredded it, page one to the last page, and every page had red marks on it. And I gotta tell you,
don't take yours to her.
I stopped writing. I didn't write again for over 10 years because I let that influence me. People, if someone looks at your book and you ask them to critique it, be accepting of it. But don't give up. Let it just roll off your shoulders, get thick-skinned, and write your next line. That's what you got to do, guys, because it's a tough job. It's simple, but it's not easy. And that's just, you know, you got to sit down and, like Todd Funnestock, one of my past guests, he had written 19 novels at the time of his coming on the show. He wasn't even 45 years old yet. And you know what he did? He went home and wrote 2,000 words a day. That's what he does. And, you know, it's just a consistency. It's making a choice and doing it with page one and doing it keep writing till it's done. Guys, we are, you know, quickly running out of time. So again, the book is Death Song of the Dragon, Chicxulub. Did I get that closer?
Here's how you do it. Okay? Follow me. Chicxulub.
Chicxulub.
You know, lube gun that you
Lube. Chicxulub.
Chicxulub. It's actually the site of the center of where the meteor crashed that killed all the dinosaurs in Mexico, in Yucatan.
And a worthwhile read, I guarantee it. Guys, you have been watching the weekend, the Boost Plus. And this is KUHS, the stream. Coming up is Paul Chavez and Deep Cuts, Mr. International. Tune in, stay tuned in. Guys, I don't know what you're doing in the evenings, but tune in your radio to KUHS. They're playing some beautiful, wonderful, easy listening music that's just fun. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. I just love you. I'm still, we got another minute to go here.
Thank you, Jude.
It's been such a pleasure, you know, to entertain you, to have you here. Your work